Hello. You guys are all probably sitting there wondering, who is this chick right here talking to me? My name is Carrie Christopherson Kaler. I am one of the four biology teachers at Northwood. I am currently teaching AP biology, so I might have some of you guys, maybe your junior or senior year, if you really enjoy biology, which I don't know, why wouldn't you? Because it's awesome. Miss Meadows asked if I could help her out in teaching you guys about photosynthesis. A couple of warnings before I begin. Number one, if you hear somebody crying, I know this sounds awful to even say that. It's my poor son. He's having a hard time going to sleep tonight. My husband's up there helping, so I'm not just letting him scream. But he's a little cranky tonight. So I apologize for the crying. And then number two, I oftentimes don't like redoing these videos. It's more fun if you just go right straight through. I'll probably get tongue-tied or say something silly, or mess up even, but we're going to keep going, okay? Keeps it a little interesting, all right, to say the least. So with that said, let me see if I can get this PowerPoint open. Hide. All this stuff's in my way, guys. Oh. I might have to stop the video. Wait, no, I don't. Okay, here we go. Technology, gotta love it. All right, and by the way, you can call me Miss Chris. If you ever have questions, feel free to email me. If you see me at school whenever we go back, feel free to talk to me and ask questions whenever. All right. Photosynthesis, one of my most favorite things in the whole wide world. Reason being because it involves one of my most favorite thing in the whole wide world, which is plants. Okay. So you have this little probe question up at the top of your notes. A giant sequoia tree is one of the largest trees on earth. I'm basically just going to summarize this and not read it for you guys. Basically what they're saying is that this huge sequoia, and actually some of the redwoods are gigantic as well, and they're so big that some of them out in California, they'll actually cut a hole in the middle of them and cars can ride through it. I mean, huge, right? Very cool. But what this is asking you is that it's saying that it came from one single tiny little seed, right? So the big question is where did most of the matter that makes up the wood and leaves of this huge tree originally come from? So matter is one of those weird science words where if you guys are like me, it's just like, what the heck is matter? Think of matter as being the stuff that makes something up, okay? So when you think about that huge tree, how do we go from a tiny seed to that huge tree? Okay, so here we're asking you to circle the best answer. So is it sunlight, water, soil, carbon dioxide, oxygen, minerals, chlorophyll? What is it? Okay, so I'm just going to keep on talking. As you guys are doing this, you can pause and write down what you think. I am not going to give you the answer right away. That's going to come in the notes. So let's see if you're listening. Okay, and I do have a little clip to show you that. They did ask a lot of adults this, and I've actually seen a video where they asked Harvard graduates and they got the answers wrong. Okay, all right. Moving on. So what is the whole point of photosynthesis? Probably what you guys have learned about photosynthesis in middle school is that it's there to make food. But because you're in high school, the high school definition is that they're going to be making something known as glucose. Now you guys learned about glucose back in the biochem unit. It is a carbohydrate. And basically, it is going to be a form of energy. Now, you need to know the formula for this glucose because it's going to come up quite often. So the formula is C6H12O6. I always joke with my kids, and I'm not encouraging tattoos. So I fear that someday some kid's going to take me very literally on this. But I tell them to get biological tattoos, and one of them is the formula of glucose. Okay, don't do it though. All right, just saying. It's an important thing. Learn it. All right. So organisms that undergo photosynthesis, we can have two terms for them. You can call them producers, which mean that they're going to produce their own food, or we can call them autotrophs. And you guys heard that term back when we talked about characteristics of life. So what that basically means is that they're going to make their own food. Now, I've had some kids in the past. You're going to see that I have some kids asking some very interesting questions. Some kids would be like, but Miss Chris, I made some mac and cheese last night on the stove. Yeah, but then you had to eat it, correct? And how it's going to work with plants is they just hang out there, they make the glucose, and then they themselves have to break that down as well. Okay, so we are not autotrophs. It would be wicked cool if we were, but unfortunately we're not. Okay, so what are some organisms that undergo photosynthesis? What do I mean by plants, and what do I mean by producers and autotrophs? The big categories they can be is we have plants. Okay, so what is a plant? This is a plant. This is a plant. This is moss. And this is a plant. Now, the main reason why I'm giving you different pictures of plants is because, again, I had a student long time ago, not at Northwood, I've been teaching a long time, who was arguing with me that a tree is not a plant. So this is, challenging moments in my teaching career where, it's just, you got to be, it's tricky. A tree's a plant, okay? All right. The other thing that can do this is that will be considered a producer and autotroph is going to be good old bacteria, and also some of your protists. Probably the most classic example of phytoplankton, which are photosynthetic protists, are going to be your green algae. This guy right here is called Volvox. Kind of a side note right there. If you notice those little circles inside of it, those are their own little living organisms. They're colonial protists, which means all those dots that you see in there live in that outer bubble. If those little parts were to come out, like the smaller circles that you see right here, if they happen to escape that big one, they actually would die. They have to be in like the big colony, I guess you can say. Now, one thing that you guys should notice right here is, oh my goodness, everything's green. Okay, a good indicator that something's going to be undergoing photosynthesis is that they will be green. Okay, which we're going to talk about that here in a second. So, where does photosynthesis occur? One thing that I think teachers make a mistake on is that when we're talking about this stuff, like, I think my kids are with me. They know where I am, okay? When really you guys are way out here, not you guys, because I don't know you guys yet, but some of my students. And then I'm like right here, and we got to get these guys together, okay? So if we were to zoom in to where we are, we just have a producer right here. So I could have had a tree. I could have had a Volvox, which is that critter that I just showed you. I could have anything, a producer, okay? Now, this is where we're going to start to differentiate a little bit because I focused on a plant, which is mainly what we are going to be focusing on for the process of photosynthesis. When we get to the kingdoms like protists and bacteria, then we'll kind of tie into how those guys make it a little bit different because obviously they don't have leaves. But if I remember, I'll bring it up later on, okay? So where is it occurring on the leaf? If you guys take a look at this cross section, and a cross section is basically if I were to, you see that leaf, I sliced it and I pulled that little flap up right there. That is a cross section. Now, where the bulk of photosynthesis is going to take place is actually in these top parts right there. And if you notice all those tiny little dots that you see right there, those are a bunch of chloroplasts, okay? Tons of them. And that's typically going to be on the upper side of the leaf. If you ever pay attention to how these broad leaves orient themselves toward the sun, is they always, like, imagine that my hands are a leaf. They're always kind of positioning their way with it, which is kind of cool because they want to maximize how much radiant energy they can actually get from the sun. Zero in on a plant cell right there. You guys just learned about that in your last unit. And inside of that plant cell, hopefully you recall that a chloroplast is the organelle that is responsible for photosynthesis. And probably one of the most important things inside of that chloroplast is going to be your pigments. Okay. Yes. So chloroplast, again, just review. This would have been better if it was, kind of mixed in there, but whatever, we make mistakes. So chloroplast is where plants make glucose, which is going to be the food. And then pigments are going to be structures inside of plants that are there to absorb sunlight energy, probably the most important thing. A lot of kids want to list first and foremost that they give plants their color as that main function of pigments, which is very true. They do that as well. However, the most important thing and the reason why they have pigments is to absorb that sunlight energy. Okay? We'll get to that later on. So the main pigment in plants is actually a pigment known as chlorophyll. Okay, some of this stuff should hopefully be reviewed for you guys. Now, what this is showing you right here is a cool process. If we were in school, more than likely we would be doing it with you guys, but obviously it's very tricky to do it virtually because we have some pretty nasty chemicals that we use with it. It's a chromatography solution. But what you see right here is how we do this is we take spinach leaves, or you could actually take any leaf out in your yard, and we crush it up on what's known as chromatography paper. It's kind of like filter paper. And we put it in a special solution, which causes those pigments to separate out. So what you see right here is a wide range of pigments that plants would have. You have a lot of greens. So there's actually chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. You're going to have other things called accessory pigments like xanthophyll and carotene. Okay, you don't need to know those specific things, but it's just showing you again how many pigments they have. And the big question is well, then why do plants have that many pigments? It's to absorb as much sunlight energy as they possibly can, right? This is how they live. So therefore, you want to have a lot of pigments to make this process happen efficiently and effectively. Okay, I like to ramble. I'm sorry. All right, moving on. So here's another tattoo for you guys. Okay, but again, don't do it. Disclaimer: don't really do it. It's just me being stupid and silly. Stupid's not a nice word. I've learned that from all the kids in the neighborhood. They snitch on somebody if they call somebody stupid. So I apologize. All right. So with the summative equation, you are going to find that you're going to have to rattle this thing out. Okay. Now, what I find that students do oftentimes with this is they try to memorize it. Okay. When really all that I want you guys to do is to think about it. You have a general idea of what plants do in photosynthesis. So what I typically ask my kids is, what are 3 things that plants have to have for the process of photosynthesis? So the 3 things, and using the words, are going to be carbon dioxide, water, and then sunlight energy. Now, sunlight energy is kind of in a wonky place. And part of the reason why we put it on that arrow like so is because it's the sunlight energy that's going to be fueling this reaction. Okay, if we didn't have that sunlight energy, this reaction would not take place, which is kind of a creepy thing when you really start thinking about how dependent we are on plants and the sun. Okay, we take them very much so for granted. All right, so those are the 3 things that have to be there for photosynthesis. So then for the second part, I want you to think about, what do they make? Okay, well, the whole point of photosynthesis is to make glucose. And thankfully for us, they also are going to be producing oxygen. Okay, and we breathe that oxygen in. All right, now one thing to note here is we have reactants and products in this reaction. So reactants are what we need for this thing to take place. Hopefully you guys remember that from biochem and enzymes. So carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight energy are reactants, while glucose and oxygen are going to be our products. Okay, meaning what they're going to make. Okay, so not only do you need to know the words, but you also should know the formulas of it. Okay, so carbon dioxide is CO2, water is H2O, sunlight energy, and that's also radiant energy. They basically mean the same thing. Okay, formula for glucose, one of your tattoos, is C6H12O6, but not really. And then the formula for oxygen is O2. Okay, you need to know both of them. And when we start talking about the process of photosynthesis, it's kind of pay attention. It's important to pay attention to the elements and how many we have of them, because that's going to kind of come into play as well. Okay. All right. So that leads me, let me get my face out of the way. Move, Miss Chris, move. All right. I'm going to come over here, spice it up a little bit. All right. So photosynthesis, what's going on here? All right. Now, one thing to warn you guys about is that how we are teaching you this is by no means the whole story. Okay. We are giving you a pretty simmered down version of it. If and when, hopefully you guys do come to AP biology, this will be, you'll learn a lot more. Okay. It is a really cool process. If you ever want to talk photosynthesis, I know we don't know each other, but shoot me an email. It's under Carrie Christopherson, and I will be more than happy to chat up some photosynthesis with you. Okay. I expect 20 emails, right? All right. So moving on. Just know that this is simmered down. Okay. All right. So first and foremost, if we were in school, what I would say is, all right, what's happening in this picture right here? Okay. And I asked my kids to put a 1 on that arrow right there. What's happening here, very simple. The pigments are going to absorb sunlight energy. Okay. Again, that's the whole point of the pigments. Now, I'm showing you this through using a tree. Okay. And the reason why I do that is really it's happening in a chloroplast inside of that structure that has those stacks inside of it. It's easier for students to visualize this process when it's going into a tree versus into a tiny chloroplast. But just please notice that sunlight energy is going into the leaves where those chloroplasts with the pigments are located. Okay. All right. So next I have them draw number 2, which is right down here. Okay. And then I ask students, oh, what's happening here? Okay. Very dramatic, just like that. All right. So what is happening here is that they're absorbing water. Okay. Water is going to be one of those reactants for this whole process. And it's just something that they need to live. Okay. Not only to live, but also for the process of photosynthesis. Okay. All right. So the next thing that I have up here, and I'm leaving a lot of chemistry out and reactions, okay? Because some funky stuff happens to this water that I do not believe I am putting in on this particular PowerPoint. So again, send me an email. All right. So dude jamming out to the old school iPod right here is exhaling CO2, okay? So number 3, carbon dioxide is released by consumers and producers. What? Whose mind is blown right now? Yours. Yours is blown. Why do I say that? Is a lot of kids say, well, Miss Chris, wait a second. You mean to tell me that producers are going to be making, let me try that again. I'm talking so fast. My brain's going faster than my mouth. So, Ms. Chris, you mean to tell me that producers are going to be producing carbon dioxide? Absolutely, they are, okay? And when we talk about cell respiration, you'll kind of understand that a little bit more, okay? So both of them are going to be released. All right, so CO2 out into the atmosphere. You're doing it right now, okay? All right, so next, I don't even know what number we're on. My head is in the way again. Why am I always in the way? All right, so for number 4, what we got here is that these producers are going to absorb that carbon dioxide, okay? Now, here's where some crazy things happen. They're going to break off that carbon and release oxygen, and it's going to happen 6 times. Whew, okay. So what we have to think about here is I want you guys to think back to the formula of glucose, okay? So the tattoo, if you had it, you could just refer to it or wherever you want to put it, right? But don't, is C6H12O6. If you guys take a look at all of these reactants that I have right here, we got all the game players for glucose, okay? But probably the thing that I think is the most important is notice that it's going 6 molecules of carbon dioxide will be absorbed by this plant. The big question here is, well, then why 6? And then you got to think about what are they trying to make? And what they're trying to make is that they are trying to make glucose. Notice where the formula for glucose that it's C6. Now I know it's got H12O6, and yeah, those are important, but to be honest, guys, I don't care about those as much as I do the carbons. We always are going to be tracing the carbons. In cell respiration, we're going to be tracking the carbons, okay? They're the most important thing. So what do plants then do with this glucose, right? Well, they can do several things with it. It is an energy source. They can burn that up, call it a day. The other thing is that they can turn that simple sugar into a polysaccharide, such as cellulose. What? Cellulose. Where is cellulose in this tree? Right all up in here. Okay, it's all right up in there. We're also going to use carbon for all sorts of other things that are inside of that producer, and in this particular instance, this tree. So what's interesting here is that the leaves, the roots, the wood, everything in that tree ultimately is going to be coming only from one thing. And that one thing, believe it or not, is carbon dioxide. It's just that one thing. Now, granted, water and oxygen play a big part of that one. But again, we care about those carbons because we refer to it as a carbon backbone. And backbones, as we know, are pretty important. Okay. So carbon is basically going to be, the carbon from carbon dioxide is going to be responsible for making up the matter that makes up these producers. Okay. Producers use the carbon from CO2 to make glucose. I got a little excited about that, and I happened to do this with photosynthesis, so I apologize. Okay. Normally, if we were in class, I would have given you breaks, like a little stretch break. So feel free to pause at any point in time and stretch, and then come on back to the crazy. All right. So one thing you need to be able to pick out are the reactants for photosynthesis. So the key thing in this diagram is to look at arrows going in, okay? So CO2 is going to be a reactant, water is going to be a reactant, and sunlight energy is going to be a reactant. And my big old head is in the way again, all right? So we got sunlight energy. Whoa, what did I do to me? Sunlight energy, water, and carbon dioxide, okay? What's going to be the product? The products are going to be the arrows coming out or what's staying in. So we only really have two products. We're going to have oxygen and glucose. Now, if you guys think about that, that relates pretty perfectly to your summative equation, okay? Where you can, the thing that I gave you at the beginning of the notes, okay? Okay, excuse me. All right. So what I want to do really fast is I want to come back right here. Okay, I want to address this question again. All right, so the question that I'm asking you is, where did most of the matter that makes up the big, huge trees come from? Okay.
Army Rangers are taught to make tough decisions under pressure.
I don't.
That's why I picked up an enemy grenade and threw it away from my men.
Yes, it is. Okay, I'm gonna pause it. All right. Hopefully, my screen is being shared with you. If not, I'm gonna have to edit this video. But yeah, watch this. This should answer the question. All right.
Are some of the biggest organisms on the planet. But where do they get that matter to grow?
Which nutrients out of the ground? It's that soil, really, yeah. Goodness out of the soil, I suppose.
Comes out of the soil.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Mm.
Why isn't there a big hole around the tree where it's taken out all the soil?
Does it say gradually that the soil has time to recover?
Now, I think it's intuitive to believe that the tree gets most of its mass from the soil, because you can see those roots digging into the soil, and they must be taking something out of there. And I mean, a tree looks like dirt, and it feels solid like dirt, but it's not. In the early 1600s, a scientist named Johann Baptist van Helmont tried to figure out where the mass of a tree was coming from. So he got a pot of soil and very carefully measured the amount of soil in there. Then he planted the tree and took care of it for 5 years, making sure that no soil left or was added to his pot. And at the end of this experiment, he weighed the tree to find that it was 72 kilograms, but the mass of soil had only decreased by about 60 grams. This was pretty strong evidence that the mass of the tree does not come from the soil.
I've never thought about that, actually, because they don't really eat anything, trees.
They don't eat anything?
No.
They don't eat anything.
Water is all they absorb.
That's all they eat?
Yeah.
They don't eat anything else?
No.
That's all they eat?
Well, presumably from the water and the nutrients from the soil.
Is there anything else that you need besides the soil and the water?
I suppose that's what you need, isn't it?
To make
other than the original seed for that particular tree, I
the
suppose.
seed and the soil and the water, and that makes this big tree.
Mm.
Of course, Johann Baptist van Helmont did conclude that the tree was made entirely of water. Now, while that's not correct, at least he was on the right track, realizing that the matter of a tree doesn't come out of the soil.
The sun energy, yeah.
The sun energy.
Yeah.
Are they converting energy into mass, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't
Like
know.
there wasn't stuff, and then there was. Like, where did that stuff come from?
Magic.
I have no idea. My question is, where do they get that mass to grow big?
Sun. Is it from the rain? And the sun, presumably.
Light, sunlight,
And the sunshine.
the sunshine. Does the sunshine add mass to the tree?
Well, Yes, they wouldn't grow without it. I don't know whether it adds mass, but they wouldn't grow without it.
Of course, the sun's energy is needed for the tree to build the matter into its branches and leaves. But the sun itself, the energy, is not matter.
Well, I suppose we've got to put air into this as well.
Yeah.
There's got to be something out of the,
What is it about the air?
a gas in the air that it needs as well.
Oxygen.
The trees need the oxygen.
Yeah, they need the oxygen, don't they?
And I guess oxygen.
The oxygen, of course.
The oxygen? Are there
Maybe
any
the trees-
ingredients that we're missing?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide.
So would it surprise you to find out that 95% of a tree is actually
Carbon dioxide.
from carbon dioxide? Trees are
95%
largely
of
made up
tree.
of air.
Surprising. Yeah.
Yeah,
That is surprising.
I need this reaction like, holy
Holy shit.
So as it turns out, trees are mostly made out of air, out of the carbon dioxide that they
Carbon
take in.
dioxide, guys.
What's interesting is that we breathe out carbon dioxide and water. That's how we lose mass. But it's the exact same substances that trees breathe in to gain mass. So if you can imagine a closed system where it was just you and a tree, you would breathe out that carbon dioxide and water, the tree would take it in, so you would get smaller while the tree is getting bigger. And in a sense, you're becoming the tree.
What? Did you guys get that? 95% of a tree comes from, where is it? What should be the answer here? Carbon dioxide. Okay, all that other stuff is very important, right? But carbon dioxide is the main player in the process of making components or cellulose. I lost my train of thought. That make up the bulk of a plant. That took forever to say. Okay. I have one more to show you, and I'm not going to show you all of this. As a matter of fact, what did I say to show it to you? I'm not going to show you the photosynthesis song. 223. Don't let me forget that, kiddos. 223. All right. Here we go. These TED Eds are amazing. All right, here we go.
Ever wonder where most of the food you eat every day comes from? Well, about 60% of the food you eat is carbohydrates. As you can probably tell from its name, carbohydrates contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But where do these atoms originally come from, and how do they join together to make delicious foods like fruits and pasta? It actually all starts with the air you are exhaling at this very minute, specifically the carbon dioxide molecules.
And you know what? I just got to say this because everybody's saying air. Please don't ever put that down as an answer in biology if we're asking you anything about gases. Air is all sorts of stuff, you guys. It is nitrogen, it's methane, it's water vapor, it's oxygen, it's carbon dioxide. Sorry if I repeated anything. So I can't stand it when people say air. So that's why she said specifically carbon dioxide. All right, get off of my little soapbox. All right.
Are going to breathe in this very same carbon dioxide through pores in their skin called stomata. Plants drink in water from their roots to get the needed oxygen and hydrogen atoms and their electrons in order to build carbohydrates. What is that thing? Well, that's a special plant organelle inside the leaves of plants called a chloroplast. It's green because of a special light-absorbing pigment called chlorophyll. Each leaf has about 44,000 cells, and every cell can have anywhere between 20 to 100 chloroplasts. That's up to 4,400,000 chloroplasts.
Did you get that? That's a lot, okay? Remember that.
Now, you've probably guessed that we're talking about the process of photosynthesis, and you might be wondering when the sun is going to make its entrance. Let's go back to that original molecule of water. The plant has to split this molecule of water so that it can get electrons from it. But the plant can't pull that water.
And I didn't talk about that process. Remember I said that I was leaving a lot out in the diagram? What's happening here is a process called photolysis, right? Where the sunlight's actually going to break apart that water molecule, okay? You don't need to know that. Just know that it takes in water, takes in sun, takes in CO2, okay?
Apart by itself. It needs help from the high energy rays of the sun. So now that the chloroplast has all the building blocks, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and electrons, it can use them to go through the rest of the steps of photosynthesis to transform that original carbon dioxide gas into a simple carbohydrate called glucose, C6H12O6. That little glucose molecule then helps to build bigger and better carbohydrates like cellulose. Cellulose is a type of carbohydrate found in plants that our body cannot break down. We call it fiber, and we eat it in vegetables like lettuce, broccoli, and celery. Plants use cellulose to keep themselves strong. The plant could also turn that glucose into starch, a large molecule that stores energy for the plant. We love eating starch from plants like potatoes, corn, and rice.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. All right, a little bit of review in there as well. Okay, so there was one more thing up here, and I'm going to let you guys do this on your own. It's probably one of the cheesiest songs you'll ever hear in your life, but it's the photosynthesis song. So if you feel like jamming out to some cheese, there you go. That's your jam. All right. Well, I hope that this made sense. It did go a long time. And I am paranoid now that I am not recording this because I don't see the record button, but I gotta have, okay, I am. Woo! This technology, you guys, it's like my learning curve's like this. All right, anyway, if you have any questions about anything, you can always email Miss Meadows, or please feel free to email me. My email, you could just start typing in my last name. My last name is Christofferson. It's spelled Christopher and then son. So just start typing it in, and Carrie's my first name. Shoot it my way, and I'll be more than happy to clear up any questions that you might have. Thanks for putting up with my craziness, you guys. I might see you later. Who knows? All right. See you later. I can turn this video off. I don't know how. Where do I turn it off?